This is the Family Money Adventure Show, the money and travel podcast helping you make money moves that feel right for your family. I am Kevin Payne. Join me every other week as we have meaningful conversations about family, money, and travel. Hello, adventurers. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about tracking your spending. If you know anything about us, you know that we love budgeting. It's a big part of the family money adventure experience. Now, there's several ways that you can budget your money, and they range from rigid budgets that track every last penny to something called the anti-budget, which is basically a budget for people who hate to budget. Regardless of which method you choose for budgeting, one of the most important parts of building a budget is to track your spending. In this episode, we're going to be discussing why it's so important to track your spending and the different ways that you can do it. It doesn't have to become a huge chore, and it's something that can really lead to a lot of big savings and help you reach your financial goals. First, let's start off on why it's important to track your spending. You know, you get a paycheck, you pay your bills, you set aside money for groceries, gas, entertainment, and whatever else is in your budget. And maybe you have a solid budget and maybe you stick to it, but maybe you're like us and there's times when you don't quite stick to your budget. Maybe you purchased a subscription service or signed up for a streaming service or gym membership that you never use. We've all been there before. No matter how good we are with our money, there's usually something that we forget or impulse purchases that we make that don't quite fit into our budget. And if you're like us, maybe it's way too easy to hit the buy button on Amazon or other online shopping sites. That is where tracking your spending comes in. One of the main reasons that you should track your spending is it gives you a clearer picture of where your money is going. By taking a look at your past expenses, you can better understand where your money is going on a weekly or monthly basis. It can also help you compare projected costs versus actual costs, so you can see the difference in how it may affect your monthly budget. It's also important to track your expenses so you can spot spending trends that might be a concern. Let's go with one of the old standbys in the personal finance community, and that would be coffee. There's nothing wrong with lattes. I absolutely love them. I love going to Starbucks and other local coffee shops to get coffee all the time, so I totally get it. And there's no problem with that whatsoever, as long as it's part of your budget. Family Money Adventure, we're all about spending based on your values. So if you want to spend your money on coffee, go for it. But if it's not a line item in your budget, you could be spending money that's earmarked for something else. So the best thing to do at that point would be to add coffee into your budget so that you have money for it. Third, tracking your expenses helps you to change your future spending habits. As you get more familiar with your spending habits by looking at all of your expenses, you might start noticing some trends and maybe things that trigger certain purchases. And then for the future, you'll be able to recognize those things before they happen and before you maybe add items to your shopping cart. It may get you to the point where you start to think more about your purchases and maybe delay purchases until you've thought through whether it's a good idea to buy something or not. And it can also help you avoid debt. The next reason you should track your expenses is it can help you set more realistic goals. Perhaps your income and expenses don't quite line up with your financial goals. Maybe every month you have the goal to set aside $500 for savings, and you always seem to fall short of that. Well, the problem might not be you. It might be the fact that you've set an unreasonable goal for yourself for savings. So as you look at your expenses, you have a better idea of what you can reasonably save each month. Then you can go back and adjust your saving goals accordingly instead of experiencing all the guilt and disappointment and stress that you face every single month when you don't hit your goals. Lastly, tracking your expenses can help you spot fraudulent activity. Many banks and credit cards accounts come with services that will notify you of any suspicious activities or fraudulent charges on your cards. Still, it's a good practice to scan your credit card bills and bank statements looking for anything that might seem suspicious. It doesn't even have to be a fraudulent charge. It could be that maybe you were just charged the wrong amount at a store or restaurant. And the quicker that you spot these types of mistakes, the more likely you can get them corrected properly. So now that we've looked at why it's important to track your expenses, let's get into how to track your expenses. Now, you can do this several different ways, and the ways that I'm going to mention might not be the only ways to do it. Maybe there's another way that might work better for you. Basically, you just got to figure out what works best for you and go with that. First, we're going to start on how to track your expenses manually. So the first thing you want to do each month is to gather all of your bank and credit card statements or statements for any financial accounts you might have. You can either print them out. Most banks nowadays will give you an electronic statement. So whatever works for you, you want to make sure you have those out in front of you so you can take a look at them. And initially, it's a really good idea when you first start tracking your expenses to maybe go back a few months, because if you do that, it gives you a better sense of your habits. You're able to spot trends and spending habits. So looking back a few months will give you a clearer picture than if you were just to look back this past week. So after you have those in place and ready to go, what you want to do is start looking through your expenses and categorize them. Many of them will fall under maybe fixed expenses like rent or mortgage payments, utilities, insurance premiums, car payments, all those things. While others might be more variable expenses that change from month to month, like food, clothing, and entertainment. Now, you can categorize your spending into smaller groups like, gas station subscriptions, dining out, memberships, department stores, whatever works for you. And you can do this directly on the statements. If you've printed them out, just write directly on there, or you can create a spreadsheet for tracking, or you can just be like us and use a notebook and a pencil and paper. Whatever works for you. Now, if tracking your expenses manually seems kind of tedious, you can set up a system that will automate the process. You can do that through an accounting software or through a budgeting app. If you're already using accounting software like Quicken to manage your finances, it might have the functionality in it to separate and organize your expenses into categories. We don't personally use Quicken, so I'm not quite sure exactly how it works. But if you do use something like that or another software, I'm sure that you can go in there and create weekly or monthly reports, that you can plug in your financial account information and that it will automatically pull that information into the software. It all kind of depends on what software you're using and its capabilities. There are tons of great budgeting apps out there that allow you to track your spending, and we will include links in the show notes with many of those budgeting apps that we love. Now, to do this, most likely you're going to have to link your spending accounts to the app. It's safe and secure to do that, but some people are a little apprehensive to do that. That's why some of the budgeting apps will allow you to still do it manually, which kind of meets you in the middle between manual and automatic process. Either way, using these apps, they will categorize your spending, and sometimes they'll even analyze your spending habits. They'll send you insights each month on how to save more money or trends that they might notice from month to month. Now, many of these budgeting apps are free to use or to at least try, but some do charge a fee. Not all budgeting apps allow you to track spending, so it's important that you look at what tools are available, whether it allows you to build a budget, set savings goals, and track your spending before you download them. There are even budgeting apps specifically for couples who want to share finances. Now, another way that you can track your expenses automatically is through mobile banking apps. Depending on where you bank, you may already have the ability to track your expenses within your bank's mobile app. People often underutilize the tools that they already have, and banking mobile apps is one of those tools. So do yourself a favor and pull out your mobile device later and explore your bank's mobile app to see if it allows you to track spending, see if it offers additional tools that can help you budget or manage your money better. The reality is that tracking your expenses isn't necessarily fun. Nobody likes to see all of their money missteps, their indulgences, overspending, whatever you want to call it. But the reality is that it gives you a clearer picture of your finances, even if you don't like it. So then you can move in the right direction in the future towards your financial goals. I urge you to give tracking your expenses a chance for a few months and see if it makes a difference in how you spend and save. We want to hear from you. What topics would you like to hear us cover in upcoming episodes? head over to FamilyMoneyAdventure.com and leave us a comment or message. And hope you will join us for these empowering and hopefully entertaining discussions. It's time to take control of your money and pursue what you've always wanted. Until the next adventure.